I wanted to draw this portrait of Ariana Grande using pastel pencils, but I ran out of sanded papers, and sanded papers are very expensive. So I figure out maybe I can create or I can make my own sanded paper using this old, what do you call this? Canvas board. It's very dirty already. This is a very cheap canvas board. And yeah, so let's make our own surface or sanded surface for our Ariana Grande pastel pencil portrait. So I'm gonna use a gesso on the board. This is the Montmartre clear texture gesso, and then I add a little bit of brown watercolor just to tone the gesso because the gesso is clear. So I need a toned paper for my sanded paper for my pastel because it works. Pastels really works well with toned paper. So my old watercolor right here, a little bit of brown and a little bit of like a pink color. Then I got this tone right here, and this is what I'm gonna paint over my old canvas. If I didn't tone it with watercolor, it will be clear, so the dirt of the old canvas will be seen on the surface of the board. So yeah, again, this is like a DIY or a homemade sanded paper because if you don't know sanded papers, these are the papers that only works well with pastel pencils, and generally some other papers would not work well on a regular pastel paper. Maybe one, two, or three layers will do, but with sanded papers, there's almost unlimited layers that you can put on top of the sanded paper. But sanded papers are very hard to find and very, very expensive kind of paper. So why not try to make our own sanded paper? So this is a very wild experiment. I'm not sure what I'm doing with this. Maybe it will work. And if it does, I think I got like lucky because now I don't have to buy my own the very expensive sanded papers for my pastel drawings. I can just buy a very cheap canvas board like what I have here, and then now I'm sketching on top of the dried canvas board that is being treated, or like I put like what do you call a primer. The primer is was that white like liquid right there that I put in the beginning that I toned with watercolor tubes is called again the Montmartre clear textured gesso. That is not very expensive because it's like a liter of gesso, and you can use a lot for that amount of gesso because I put just a very little right here on the board, and it covers the whiteboard really well, and I just let it dry before I do this drawing or this portrait of Ariana Grande on top of it. So the first one I sketch using I'm gonna put then the colors of the pencils, that the name of the pencils that I'm using on this entire portrait, so you can see what colors to use. Because it's important to use several layers of colors to achieve realistic look when it comes to pastel pencils. And when your paper is not sanded or the regular pastel papers, you won't be able to layer many colors. But here I'm trying to see if I can layer as much pastels on top of this, like a little experiment actually. So this is just I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will work. So I'm layering now. The technique that I'm using for this portrait is the green foundation technique. So I put several layers of greens right here, and then this yellowish color just to subdue the green, and so the green will not be very intense. And so I go layer after layer, and then I'm using this black. I'm gonna see first for the eyes. Aside from the black, I use blue. I use this color also. So I'm trying to see just for the eyes if I can layer as much of colors of pastels that the paper can absorb or can be layered on this particular. Actually, this is not a paper, this is a board, so this is a sanded board technically. So I'm sure a lot of you are colored pencil artists, and I know most pastel pencils is very underrated. Very few artists is using pastel pencils, but I encourage all of you, if you are a colored pencil artist, I encourage you to try pastels because this is a very easy and quick medium to use compared to colored pencils. This is powdery, this is so easy to blend. You don't need any blender actually, because as you go layer after layer with these pastel pencils, it actually blends itself. It smoothens itself, and because it's pencil form, you can achieve realistic to hyper realistic drawings using these pastel pencils. It's different with pastel chalks because pastel chalks, because they are in a chalk form, you can't add tiny details to achieve realistic look. But with pastel pencils, it's like colored pencils but powdery, and you don't need to burnish, you don't need blenders, you don't need to colored pencils is quite hard to use if because sometimes you need to add the pressure to layer the colored pencils. But here with pastel pencils, everything is light. From the beginning to the end, everything, the application is very, very light. So it doesn't put a toll on your hands. It actually is, yeah, generally a very quick and easy medium to use for your portraits. So uh, now you will see right here for the lips, I'm gonna layer several colors right here to achieve the fullness and the realism of the lips right here. And doing the nose, when I did the nose, now I can see that the paper or the board that I made, the sanded board, that do-it-yourself sanded board is quite working actually. So I'm at this stage, I'm already very excited because yeah, the paper is kind of looking, can you see that? The redness, the fullness of the lips right here. And I couldn't achieve it on regular paper or a regular pastel paper. I could only achieve this kind of fullness, this kind of heavy layering only on sanded papers. So I use UArt pastel matte. I use Sennelier sanded papers. Those are papers for rich people because they are very, very expensive. Although they are very good with pastel pencils, but yeah, they cost a fortune. But now, if this becomes successful, if this experiment of my own do-it-yourself sanded board by using an old canvas board, and then I primered it with clear texture gesso, and then that I toned with watercolor, and yeah, it's working. I'm surprised. I'm amazed because I've already been layering so many layers right here of pastels, and the paper or the board is like absorbing all the colors that I'm uh, that I am putting right here.